Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Global Intelligence Update. And as always, we've got a great guest with us. So let me introduce you guys to Neerja Singh. Neerja, a generational diversity speaker, is the author of 6 books and a columnist on staying a step ahead of Gen Next. Known as the official Seenager, her TEDx talk, The Unaffordable Cost of Generation Gap, has garnered wide acclaim. A trained educationist, media professionalist, and certified virtual presenter, Neerja is also an Oxford University Press trainer, addressing multiple companies, educational institutions, and armed forces organizations on working with Gen Z. Currently training to be a generational coach, she is a University Gold Medalist in philosophy, the Global Speaking Federation current Vice President, and brand ambassador for the Seenager Queen Pageant. Welcome, Neerja. The floor is all yours.
Thank
Looking
you.
forward to it.
Thank you very much, Chris. This is such a sensitive subject, generational diversity. For the longest time, we only spoke of ethnic, socioeconomic, gender, but of late, generational has taken center stage because a lot of people today say and feel that it is perhaps the most relevant diversity today because the generations have become almost like very different cultures. And because of the politics, because of the struggle about language, about power, about a certain amount of resentment also about the state of affairs, let's say the climate, for instance, a lot of conversation is happening, not happening, needs to happen. This is a gray, sensitive area right now. There is a real danger of generalizing, and you don't want to do that because it's not strictly true that all Gen Z are a particular template or, or, or all boomers like me are a particular template. There are differences. And the fascinating thing about generations is that in addition to all of us human beings, there is a generation V, which is the virtual generation. And that generation is hard to differentiate. All of us become very similar when we are online. It will probably be hard for you to tell that this is Chris online, or this is Neerja online, or this is Mike Hancock online. So there is a generational way, the virtual world. However, for today's webinar, let's try and get a sense of the context, the canvas, the landscape that we are trying to make sense of. And I promise you, it's a constant effort to make sense of what is going on because a lot is happening all the time. Attitudes towards work, attitude towards the world, attitudes towards personal values. There is such a range, a wide range. So let's begin by just spelling out what our topic is today. And to do that, I am going to share some slides I've put together for all of you. Bear with me one moment. Okay. The topic today is Gen Z and company, and talking about reaping rewards of this intergenerational workplace revolution. I put an S there to say that there is a resolution possible because a lot of people today, bosses, mentors, parents, coaches, guides, teachers, they are really confused. They are a bit on the back foot because they find it difficult to make sense of what the younger people in their charge want from work and from life. So we are trying to start with this presumption that this is a place of opportunity, this is a place of growth, this is a place of mutual understanding and collaboration, and we can together, all the generations, together come to a middle ground and move forward from there rather than sticking to our posts and, well, batting away at each other. So Here is an article, a very recent article. This was on the 26th of January in the Economic Times, and it says clearly conflict of generations and bridging generational gap in the workforce. And I'll shortly explain to you where this is coming from. You would have noticed it yourselves in the life that you live, the work that you do, all the socio dynamics that you negotiate, that there is a real and present sense of, I wouldn't go so far as to call it a disconnect, but some form of some degree of dissonance, because the expectations are very different today. And there are reasons. Those reasons are, okay, I'm trying to move my slide, and yes, those reasons are technology has come up. Um, there are demographic changes around the world, and it results in these real phenomena that you read and hear about today, perhaps experience also, which essentially have to do with what is clubbed under no-show work trends. And what are these no-show work trends? Have you heard of career catfishing, office ghosting, or hybrid hierarchies? That the senior you are, well, the more privileges you have, even in the hybrid world, there's a hierarchy in terms of work-life balance. There is something called revenge quitting. Ever heard of that? These are real new phenomena that Gen Z is giving shape to. Now, what is Gen Z? Who are Gen Z? They are the generation that were born in 1995 upwards until 2010. Some people put it to 2012. There is no clear-cut demarcation, but by and large, this is an acceptable generational, let's say, range for this Gen Z, what we call Gen Z. Now, Gen Z is also the first generation to do a lot of online griping. They put their online gripes on out there for the world to see. Boundary setting shift. Quite clear about setting boundaries, and the entire idea is to wrest power back from the, well, the older generation or the bosses or the seniors who they are accountable to. They want to have a certain sense of autonomy because this generation has been brought up with a sense of agency. No generation before has ever had this sense of agency that Gen Z has today. They are a special generation. Of course, there's no knowing what Gen Alpha is going to come up like, but right now it is Gen Z that is actually, I would call them, quote, greatest of all generations, all of them, for the reasons that they are placed in a world where they have a very strong stream of information. They have it there on their fingertips. They know things as they are happening, very different from what it was like for my generation, perhaps. I'm a boomer. After that, I'll give you a quickly, in just a moment, what the generations look like in terms of their birth years. Now, the reason that catfishing is happening, the reason that the boundary setting is happening, the reason that shift shock is happening. What is shift shock? Some companies, corporates in particular, are a little nervous around Gen Z these days because Gen Z are their future leaders. Gen Z are the available young, potent talent. And yet the corporates find themselves a little bit nervous. So some of them, when they, let's say, post a certain job online, and that job has sometimes already been filled, or they're testing the waters, or somebody has simply forgotten to take it off the line. And or that job portrays the role a particular way. And when a new joinee comes from Gen Z, they get a shock because it is very different from what they expected. So shift shock. These are terms, these are catchphrases that describe what is really happening in the world of work today. And the reason all this is happening is there you have it, demographic, technological, and cultural shifts. What do we see around us? They say at least 7 generations are alive today, and 5 of them are in the workforce. There is longevity today. There are the blue zones today. People expect to live beyond 100. Whoever heard of that? And delayed retirement. Look at me. I would have retired 10 years, 20 years ago with the earlier generation, and I would have been expected to put my feet up and take it easy and rock and be calm. But here I am talking to all of you on generational diversity. So the earlier generations are taking longer to retire. There are the technological and the communication gaps. Workplace expectations are very different today. The young people want to be promoted quicker. They want to be aware of their growth chart. Which way are they headed? They want opportunities for personal development. They do want a work-life balance. They want to live. They don't want to be hammering away like their parents did or their grandparents did in a 9 to 5 job. They don't want to be, well, within quotes, loyal, perhaps stuck with a certain company. They want options, they want choices, they want to grow. These are the changing expectations. And then on top of that, we have the gig economy. So it is possible today to have multiple sources of income. It is possible today to be a scuba diver instructor at the same time as a corporate boss. It is possible. People are doing it. And this makes it crucial that the all the multi-generations that are together occupying the office space, that they be able to communicate with each other and go about learning together, growing together, and profiteering together. It makes business sense today. I learned this first. I learned the range of the young people's aspirations and their ambitions from watching my daughter. She was a graduate of the National Law School of India, University, Bangalore. She was an activist. You see there on the screen, the police taking her away. She was there fighting for a cause. Activism is another thing which Gen Z likes to take up, and they get younger and younger, the protesters on the road. It's shocking sometimes to see how young they are. They could be 12 and 13 with banners demanding that the parliaments take back their policies. It's completely unimaginable. For my generation, it just wasn't. It was only the older people, a certain template of people who protested, but it is very different today. So you see there, this child of mine, well, she was a boxing champion, a state champion, phenomenal dancer, and you'll find very many young people today who are multi-talented and multi-aspirational as well. So this is a new kind of diversity. I said earlier that we are almost different cultures, and we are also moving in a direction where generations might feel that they don't need each other to survive. It's possible to, well, survive alone, with friends, with a group, a family outside of the biological family. And we're living in narrow niches. Echo chambers are very easy to construct today because each one of us can customize the information that is coming at us. We can choose channels, we can switch off voices, we can keep things we don't like away from us. And for the first time, I believe, this is my personal opinion, that we stand to actually not meet our mandate of bringing up the next generation to be stronger than ourselves, to be more productive than ourselves, to be more potent, progressive. And I think that mandate might fall short because of the communication being not what it needs to be today. There are certain there is a certain generational benevolence that is required, I believe, because generations do need each other. The younger generation needs the older one because it's the older generation that has a vision of their future, and the older generation needs the younger generation because the young are their bid at immortality in a manner. That is what keeps them going, that vision. And I think we may be failing that mandate today. Therefore, there is a need to resolve what I call generational grief. There is sometimes a pushback on that. People might turn around and say, what is so great about this grief that's going too far? There's always been a generation gap, but I do believe it's far more visceral and radical today. And the most heartbreaking feature of that is possible to tune each other out today, which was not so earlier. So this is a generational key. The baby boomers, Gen X, millennial, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and Gen Beta was born this year in 2025. And there are some parents of baby boomers who are still around. There are actually 6 to 7 generations alive today. So you can put yourself where you belong. And what is interesting is the worldviews have changed so much. For my generation, we did what our parents did, usually, mostly. It was all based on rituals, and the work was done with the muscles and post-figurative society. Margaret Mead, the philosopher, the psychologist, coined these 3 terms. Post-figurative means that you did what your parents did, what your seniors did. From ritual, from muscle, we came to reason, because now Renaissance happened. Science became supreme. Everything had to have a proof, a logic. We didn't believe something that couldn't be proved through the scientific method. And machines, the printing press came up, the wheel was invented, a lot of other machines were invented, and we became a co-figurative society, which meant that the generations worked together and figured things out. So from ritual to reason, and where are we today? We are relative. There is no black and white. There is no precise truth, no precise belief. We can all pick our beliefs. We can all pick and choose. And we are working not with the muscle, not with the machine, but with our minds. And we have become a prefigurative society in which very often the older generation listens to the younger one. That is essentially the difference. And part of the anxiety that a lot of young people feel is because everything is relative. There is no certainty, there is no anchor, there is no core, there is no center of gravity to stand upon and say, this is certain, this cannot change, this does not change. There is a center of gravity and it will never change. That fact will not change. Today, we can all have our own truths. We all have our own tribes. We all have this view. It is impolite, it is not considered right to tell somebody, no, you're wrong. No, that's your truth. This is my truth. This is Chris's truth. This is the truth for anybody. That essentially is the difference today. And anytime we are looking at generations, if we are able to keep this in mind, that the worldview today is relative, is post-figurative, sorry, prefigurative, that will explain a lot of things to us. And then it's easier to communicate each other because we know where all of us are coming from. So now quickly, who and what is Gen Z? You see it there? Polycrisis, climate, wars, conflicts, leaders who are not exactly exemplary, moral issues, a lot of things happening there, ethics, an issue with technology, runaway AI. So all these other polycrises going on. They experience FOMO. So FOMO is different from FOMO. FOMO is fear of missing out. This is fear of messing up. There's a real fear amongst the younger people today of messing up. They don't want to be messing up. Mental health issues are constant. And of course, there is the what we call doom scrolling. So tragedy after tragedy after tragedy, they have access to age inappropriate information sometimes. And it's also seeing polarized adults. And it's not unusual for young people today to say, oh, they expect the worst to happen. So what used to be once that rainbow that you want to grow up and you would say, what am I going to do when I grow up? There's nothing of that nature anymore because a lot of growing up is happening too soon, a lot of information, an avalanche, like a train wreck, like a waterfall on their little heads. So they know a lot more than they are actually ready for. Despite that, today Gen Z is reshaping consumer and employee trends. And you'll see that they interact with the world very differently. They're calling out big businesses. They're demanding that they exemplify or they obey or they do certain social impact work, social impact projects. In fact, it's the younger people, some of them, many of them, enough of them, who are becoming social impact revolutionaries. They are the ones taking control, wresting control, because there is a sense that nobody's in control. And they're already impacting decisions like ESG, environment, social governance issues, digital transformation, and CEO succession plans. So this is the effect that Gen Z has today. This against a background of the stories that we have told them, that we have sold them. And it's important to be aware of this, so we know where to begin, what to say, and how to be what the younger generations need us to be. Very often, I'm told, I talk on generational diversity, and I hear people say, you're always saying that the younger generation needs empathy, that they are the ones who need support. How about what they owe to the older generation? I'll come to that. That is part of the social contract. But remember that the earlier generations are in a position of strength and control today. Therefore, the onus is on them to step up and understand what is the world these young people are growing up in. What does it consist of? What does it look like? What are the kind of pressures it's putting on the young workforce? Now, the stories that they are sold, we are telling them, parents are telling them, the older people are telling them anything is possible. The literature, the airwaves around us, it is full of these stories. However, is it true? No, it's not. Instant gratification, all this doesn't equal achievement. Anything is not possible. It's incorrect to say anything is possible. That's not true. Try it. Then this fairy tale that everyone wins. Everyone does not win in reality. They're both winners and losers. So when you're bringing up a generation to grow up on trophies, participation trophies, also ran trophies, because you want to stoke their self-esteem, that is not serving them well when real life kicks in. Real life kicks in sooner or later, and it's not pleasant many a times. That is how it is. I know it is considered a cliche to say this is realities like this, but the fact is that it is. It is. Then these stories about overnight success, entrepreneurs, and how many of them are really able to reach that level, very, very minute percentage. The fact is that for most of us, there simply isn't any shortcut to success. You have to be at it consistently, whittling away. That's how empires are built. That's how careers are built. That's how books are written. That's how music is made. That's how all human accomplishments are brought about. Then this myth about equality, this we brought up to everybody's equal. No, we are not. We are not equal. These are the dialogues, the internal refrains that they work with. And when they go out into the real world, they see that this is not the fact. And then they are alone trying to cope with the resultant confusion, the disappointment, a sense of betrayal almost. That takes a toll in the form of unmet expectations we just talked about. There is stress, there is burnout, and there is then the quiet quitting, and a reality check happens. So the toll, anytime the generations are trying to work together, if you're able to see what is happening behind that resistance, behind that faint resentment, behind those gripes, then perhaps some kind of a resolution, some kind of an understanding, some kind of an empathy, some kind of that generational benevolence can take place. Now, let's quickly go through a few real life examples. Here is a young person. Let's call the person Rifan. What's happening? He joins a company and is expecting rapid promotions, but he realizes that there are projects and deadlines, and he's getting bogged down in that. What happens? Disillusioned by the corporate world. Things are not working out. Obviously, that person came in with unrealistic expectations. Here is another young person who grew up, who was told that she's destined for greatness. I don't remember my parents telling me that, but I see a lot of young people, they do feel that they are the chosen ones. The fact is that very few of us are. And then there is a setback, something gets rejected. Some proposal has not met the reception that Amanda expected it to meet. And what is the outcome? She begins to question her place in the corporate world, rather than take it as a stepping stone to success. That failure is nothing but a stepping stone. Failure doesn't mean it's not permanent. Here's another young person, a brilliant app idea, then the notion that investors will flock to him to in order to invest in the app, and then there is the debt that follows, almost a fall from grace. And what is the lesson? That success requires time and effort. So you find young people who are graduates of wonderful schools, but a decision is taken not to sit for placement, to jump into entrepreneurship, even though there has been no real work experience, no real dealing with disappointments, delays, frustrations, bureaucracy, the processes, the procedures, and then the little bit of drowning begins. Here's another person. There's a lot of talent, performed beautifully as an intern, put in a lot of hard work, and yet no full-time offer because the job market is changing. There are a lot of jobs being taken over by AI, and it's going to happen more and more. Not in sync with the reality, which leads to a lot of frustration and burnout. Here's another person. You join work and you feel a promotion is due to you and the promotion is not happening, but you don't want to put in the years of effort that is required because there are other alternatives that are blinking at you. And what is the outcome? Crushing disappointment. So you'll have a lot of young people today moving from one gig to another, or switching jobs, or trying out different areas before they settle down. It works for some, it doesn't work for some. Unequal access to resources. This is a fact. This is a reality. Everybody does not have equal access to resources. You need money, you need access to internet. There are some physical limitations. Everybody does not start at the same place. That's a myth. And then people who have not had that privilege, they spend time making up for that lag. And then it ought not to lead to this feeling that you're a failure. No, you're not. You're unique. You are positioned in a situation that nobody else is, and you make the most of it. You accept a certain level of acceptance that is missing. Here's another example. Here's a young lady, wonderful, fantastic performer. There has been feedback, but that self-confidence, I know what I'm doing, and doesn't pay attention to the feedback. And what happens? In the process, she's missed out on valuable inputs. And that leads to, obviously, disappointment and the anxious generation. I'd highly recommend that you get a copy of this book and read through. The anxious generation, how the great rewiring of childhood is causing an epidemic of mental illness. Look at the irony. You're overprotected offline, but underprotected online. Today, if a parent were to say that my child is home, it would be only half truth, because the child is really not alone at home. They are possibly on the digital highways. And there's no knowing where those digital highways are taking them. So there are these differing realities, different dimensions that we are living in. It makes it very difficult to say with any kind of certainty exactly what your location is. You look at any young person, even the older people like me, half of us are online, half of us are in the physical world. And even now, when I'm talking to you, it's hard to say whether it's your entire being that's present, or whether some of you is somewhere else. It happens all the time. So there are these multiple dimensions that we are living in today, almost like shapeshifters. And the younger you are, the smarter you are, the more instinctive you are with the technology, and the more you're able to go in different directions. So this whole thing about talking of protection, talking of their safety, but all of it offline, not enough online. It is happening now slowly, this greater awareness, but there has been that gray area of confusion where a lot has perhaps happened beyond the adults' awareness and consideration. New phenomena today, the eco-anxiety disorder. My daughter suffered from that. She would get anxious. I've seen her sit and cry about the state of the world. I didn't cry when I was that age. To me, the state of the world was a distant affair. It wasn't that close. But to the young people, many of them, it feels very immediate. There's a sense of urgency that they experience. And then there is panic about, where do we go? I remember my daughter would tell me, we need to leave the cities. We need to go into the mountains. We need to dig a trench. There's the climate is going to go haywire. We have no way of controlling how hot is going to get, or how wet is going to get, or how cold, all of that. So this sense of loss of control, it leads to this, and this disorder has now been cataloged. It has been classified. It's been put down in your manuals of mental health. Fear of environmental doom, climate anxiety. It says, although not a diagnosable condition, but it has been listed down now. There are clear-cut symptoms and solutions. Solutions in the sense, palliative solutions. In addition to that, we have social media and morality. Confusion again. What is morality, and how come this particular show that is not appropriate for a certain age? TVMA. MA stands for mature audience. But there are youngsters, teenagers, teens watching this show. And it's hugely popular, and it's a violent show. There's a lot of inappropriate material, a lot of images which are not, well, safe for young people, not age appropriate. And yet this is growing in popularity. So this is the environment that the younger generation is growing up in. Well, eye disorder, World Wide Web, whatever, wherever, whenever, that's another translation of www. All of us are more or less affected. Like I said, we don't know where we all are, in what dimension at any given point. And it's important, we're not sitting on judgment. That is the reality. That's the way we are headed. You cannot keep progress back. You cannot keep technology back. You cannot hold people back. But you can be more aware. You can address these. You can acknowledge these gaps rather than brush them under the carpet or deny them totally. All of this has led to between the generations, a divide between trust deficit on one hand and empathy deficit on the other. This is a photograph, it's there online. That's Hillary Clinton during her elections fundraising. There's a fundraising happening here. There's a talk going on. And this young person happens to slip into that meeting and she opens this little banner. We have to bring them to heel. Whose words are these? These were Hillary Clinton's words. And in the context of young Black children, she was talking about incarceration, the prisons, and how they need to be brought to heel. Very harsh words. And they were picked up on not by the adults around her, who perhaps could have given some feedback. These were picked up on by this young person there. So where is the trust deficit and where is the empathy deficit? It's quite clear. In which corner do you find lack of trust and in which corner do you find lack of empathy? The fact is that the younger generation find it more and more difficult to trust the older. And therefore, we have the youth mental health crisis today. There are some statistics on the screen. I can talk about India, 18 to 30, 30 to 45 years age group. They account for 67% of total suicides. This is the youth mental health crisis we face. And we saw a clear manifestation of this in the Tokyo Olympics, when this outstanding, elite Simone gymnast, she walked back from a competition. She didn't go through with her routine because she just did not feel well. She felt the twisties. She was suffering from the twisties, which means when that gymnast goes up in the air, they feel a loss of control. They'll feel a loss of coordination in their limbs, which can be very dangerous for them if they fall from that height. And she had the courage unheard of at that level in Olympics. We all know the kind of training that goes into this. She had the courage to step back because she did not feel well enough. And what were the lessons from this unprecedented, first of its kind event at an Olympic? The lessons were that mental health has to come first, that the people who are in charge of rules, regulations, of the care, of the running of these events have to be open enough to accept it, that there is an issue and this has to be addressed. This has to be acknowledged. I just mentioned how Gen Z is national, they are progressive, they can take to the streets. And here you have an example. This happened in East Africa. It has spread in Kenya, in Nigeria, in Nairobi. They took to the streets. These young people are protesting certain tax-related rules that were being put up in the parliament, and they stormed the parliament and forced the president to take back those policies for reconsideration. Unimaginable, like I said some years ago. Which brings us to the fact today that at the workplace, a little controversial to say this perhaps, but leaders today need to be like the guide dog, not the guard dog of yesterday. Guide dog is a leader who takes along people under his charge at whatever level, as though guiding them over the minds. Come with me, I'll show you which way to go. They need to be led, not the way they were led in the past with a staff, not like that, not like a guard dog, defensive, aggressive, and guarding the turf, not like that, but like a guide dog. Very, very different. Some of the companies that have done this and are doing this, the approaches that they have adopted under tailored onboarding strategies with the new interns, with the new joinees, with the digital first approach, personalized and interactive experiences, emphasizing on purpose and impact, because these are the values that the young people hold dear These are the values they claim they want to live by. Putting together micro-learning modules, because again, the attention span that is supposed to have come down now to 12 seconds, 8 seconds. There has been research on this, and make sure that the young have hands-on experiencing and also shadowing opportunities. So these are um, some of the templates that companies are trying out to make sure that they attract the young, the right people, the right fit for the jobs they have to offer. And some real examples are of companies like Deloitte. Uh, they offer all of this under the digital onboarding platform. You have PwC, which is canvassing, which is promoting digital fitness, bite-sized learning modules, and professional skills development, this culture of continuous learning and skill development. This is very present. This is very, very relevant because things are changing. You need to re-educate yourself. Look at me. I was born in 1962. I graduated in 1983, 80 to 83, and I've gone back to studying. I've been constantly studying, and I've recently enrolled myself at an Indian Institute of Management here in India to do their senior management program, because the business landscape has changed, technology has changed, basic premises have changed, philosophy has changed. All of that has changed so much, and you have to be constantly learning and relearning. Buddy program and volunteer opportunities, pairing up newbies with mentors, guys. This is another thing that companies are experimenting with. Hindustan uh, Hindustan Unilever Limited, customized learning paths, workplace flexibility, and Reliance. These are Indian companies. Reliance is an Indian company. It offers family-friendly policies, generational awareness training. Because today, there is ageism also, and ageism can be with the older, can be with the younger people. It doesn't necessarily mean that ageism is only about the older people. It cuts across all ages. So an awareness, this is very important, and they're offering this. Marriott is offering generational leadership development programs. There is entrepreneurship programs and generational workplace wellness by Wipro. This is to just share that all this is happening in the workplace. There is a growing recognition, a growing appreciation, and a growing acknowledgement of what needs to be done today. And we have to serve ourselves, do ourselves good by remembering and reminding all the generations that there is something called a social contract. And what all can figure under this? Well, for bosses, remember, to be heard is to be valued. We are not used to hearing. So speak as if you believe you're right, but listen as if you believe you are wrong. Or, well, if that is too radical for you, believe as if you could be wrong. You could be wrong. You could be wrong. It's no longer, I know best. I am the senior, I am the older person. No, you could be wrong. So remember your part, and to the young employees, your personal longing must adapt to your collective belonging. You have a personal longing, my way or the highway. You are an individual, you are special, you want it your way, but remember that your way, your independence is dependent on the collective around you. You are a part of the community. No man is an island. That's not how it happens. So keep reminding ourselves of the social contract, that we all are connected, that we all can progress, move forward only when we cooperate and collaborate and learn from each other, grow together. And this is possible because what do all the generations want? They all want appreciation. They all want acknowledgement. They all want adaptation. They all want these 6 E's. Every generation wants respect. Every generation wants to be praised. They want to be acknowledged. We all want the same things. So as long as we remember that this is what we all want at work, it is easier to extend it to each other, to accommodate each other. Now, finally, win a prize. Win a prize. Here is going to be just a hi-fi, but you can also get my book and I will leave the details with Chris. But win a prize for guessing what may motivate a young person most today. When I ask this question, I get all kinds of replies. What will motivate a young person today? You could say money, an opportunity to shine, or an opportunity to follow their own dream. But believe it or not, for many of them, it is the opportunity to do a U-turn that motivates them. A lot of young people today are afraid that they cannot do a U-turn, they cannot come around, and they just want that opportunity. And we stand a real danger of losing young lives because they might feel that there is no way they can come back. They've gone too far in one direction. It's possible today because there are opportunities out there. It's possible today because they are taking certain decisions on their own, and that interaction between the older and the younger is not as strong as it used to be. So this can motivate them. This will motivate them as long as we can remind ourselves around the young people. And my girl didn't think she had an opportunity to do a U-turn. She died of suicide on 7th December 2021. I share it because this is a reality that is happening around us, and we need to be brave enough to acknowledge and to address it. So let's give the young a bravery born of bitter truths rather than a whitewash, and tell them not the kind of gotcha that we used to say, oh, I got you doing something stupid. No, I've got you, like that. Your gotcha needs to be like this. I've got you. I've got your back. I understand you. I hear you. I appreciate you. I'm here for you. I've got you. And you can do a U-turn. So I am an advocate for Gen empathy. And to that end, I've ended up writing all these books on various aspects of generational connection. And I also write A Step Ahead. It's a column, a regular column, trying to tell teachers, trying to tell those in charge of the young that these are the new phenomena that you need to be aware of, that the young people are thinking this way or they're doing things a certain way. And unless you know what's going on with them, how are you going to be of any use to them? This is a link, Chris, I'm just sharing here. And this is a TEDx talk on the unaffordable cost of generation gap. I'll leave the links with Chris. And thank you very much. With that, I hope that this presentation was of, that it opened up a skylight in your head. Thank you so very much, Chris, and happy more generational benevolence to all of us. And may we reap the rewards of cross-generational collaboration, cooperation, communication. Thank you.
Thank you, Neerja. I really, really appreciate so many points shared. Anthony has a question. What do you mean by U-turn? Do you have an example that you can share?
Say that again.
What do you mean by U-turn? Do you have an example to share?
What do you mean by, or certainly. By U-turn, I mean that sometimes young people, they may have made a mistake. They may have experienced something that they view as a failure. And this dominant feeling that it's not okay to fail. Some of them call themselves, for instance, recovering perfectionists. No, you don't need to be perfect. You can experience a failure, a wrong turn, a rejection, a disappointment, some kind of a disastrous situation, seemingly disastrous situation also, and still do a U-turn and come back and start again. I mean, the U-turn that a U-turn that makes it acceptable to people you value in life, whose opinion matters to you, people who you look up to. So that fear of messing up, essentially a U-turn from there.
Yeah. Thank you, Neerja. I also want to mention a few takeaways for me that I didn't really think about that I realized while I was listening to you. Those three worldviews are very, very interesting. Um, and I agree with you on that. It's definitely very true. Also, FOMO. It's the first time I've heard about it. And fear of messing up. Not FOMO, fear of messing out, fear of messing up. So that's very interesting. Then also Gen Z reshaping the consumer and the employee trends. That's very true. We've been seeing that the last couple of years. Everything's changing. And yeah, it's like you said, we have to stay up to date with all these things. And then lastly was the guide dog. That is so
Yes.
true. So true. I've worked with quite a few interns that are Gen Z, and let me tell you, they need a guide dog. There's no guard dog like in the olden days. My superiors back in the days were all guard dogs, and
Yes.
I can completely relate to you on that, Neerja. So thank you so much for sharing this. Um, really informative for myself, and I think for all the viewers that will be listening on the podcast, viewing the video offline. Really, really informative. Thank you so much, Neerja. And
You're welcome, Chris.
it was such a pleasure having you here. Finally, we got you here. Everything worked
Yes.
out. So yeah, it
Yes.
was really nice seeing you. And for everyone that's listening offline, I'll be posting the links in the comment box, all the information on Neerja as well. And just want to thank you all for listening. Thank you for Neerja again, just for being here. And everyone else, we'll see you guys next week. Neerja, is there anything else you'd like to add before we end the session?
I've said my bit, Chris. I've said my bit, but it really is important for all of us to make a very conscious effort to to be aware of each other's lives and to connect, to make a conscious effort to connect. Yes.
Very true. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. We'll see you guys again next week. Hope you have a great week ahead, and we'll see you again.
Thank
Bye
you. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
bye.